Sharkast. Sharkast. Welcome to the Sharkast.
Wow, way to go, middle school students, for that Sharkast intro. Welcome to Sharkast, episode 39. This is Dr. Don, your host for the Inter-American Academy podcast called Sharkast. Happy New Year 2022. IAA News right now seems to focus around COVID-19 Omicron variant. So I'm going to start by just reading to you a letter that was sent out to the community, dear IAA community. Thank you to the 141 families that filled out the health check survey. I'll stop and pause for a second to just mention that if you haven't had a chance to fill out the survey, please make sure you fill it out so that your student can return to school. There's a law that has been passed in Ecuador. 85% of 5-year-olds and up need to be vaccinated in order for a school to open up 100%. If we do not reach the 85% vaccination rate for a particular grade level or section, then the law states that we would only be able to open up at 50%. That means only half the students would be able to come to campus. So we want to make sure we get those vaccination records up to date. I think we're looking pretty good for our secondary school. We're already at that 85% vaccination rate. The younger we get, we seem to have a lesser vaccination rate. So let's get those vaccinations going. And if you've already done that, make sure you share that information with Dr. Piedad and on the health information survey. I'll return to the letter. It says we will remain virtual next week and return to campus on Monday the 24th with our normal late start Monday schedule. This extra week of virtual will allow our community to get healthy before we come back to campus on the 24th. So just as a reminder for the 24th, as we get ready to come back to campus, for sure on the 24th, we will be starting with clases presenciales, in-person classes. Some things that you need to make sure you do that are non-negotiable. You need to be wearing a KN95 mask or be double masking. It needs to be the appropriately fitted mask. So if it's a child, an elementary student, there is a KN95 child-size mask. That's the one the student should be wearing. Or if they're double masking with the cloth mask or the other medical mask, they need to make sure that they're fitted for that age or for their face so that they're fitted properly. Some folks, like myself, have a bunch of masks, a whole pile of fabric mask at home where the elastic is worn out and so the mask kind of sags. That's not going to work. So if you're double masking, make sure you use 2 masks that fit appropriately. That's super, super, super important. We will be checking for mask. No student will be allowed on campus unless they're wearing the appropriate mask. So make sure you get that taken care of. That's super, super important because the Omicron variant can pass through the regular material mask, fabric mask, if you're only single masking, and it can spread. And we do know that probably there are people that are asymptomatic that will be on campus that might have COVID that nobody knows about. And we don't want to spread COVID here on campus. We want to keep it locked down. Bring your mask, make sure they're fitted properly, and talk to your kids about wearing them. Whether you have secondary kids or elementary kids, they need to wear their mask all day long. At lunchtime, they need to separate 10 meters away from the nearest friend to eat their lunch. So when they take the mask off, that's the risk period, that lunchtime period, where you could spread the infection. If you take your mask off and you're sitting within a couple meters of somebody, they can still get this Omicron variant very quickly. So make sure you talk to your kids about lunchtime and snack time, that they need to not socialize during the eating time. They need to have their own personal picnic, at least 10 or 20 meters away from the nearest student, and make sure that they're safe when they're doing that. Continuing with the letter, we will be following the new CDC guidelines for quarantine. 5 days quarantine from the date of positive tests and a return to the outside world with the proper mask if the individual is no longer presenting any symptoms. Please remain at home and access Schoology if you are sick. We don't care what you're sick with, whether it's COVID or a cold or the flu. If you're sick, stay at home. If you have symptoms, stay at home. You have that letter. Now, enough about COVID, right? But I would like to talk to you about something different. I would like to talk to you about 2022 New Year's resolutions. We all know that this is the time of year that traditionally people set some resolutions for the new year to make their lives better. And we know also that by February, maybe some of those resolutions have passed by the wayside. So I wanted to go over a few tips for setting New Year's resolutions, and then I'm going to share my general resolution categories with the community. And you'll see why I'm going to do that in a second as I go through these resolutions. So I'm using a document from the Self website. And the reason I'm talking to you about New Year's resolutions is because one of the things we've learned through the pandemic is that our mental health is super important. And if we do not do things for ourselves to help us have that health, to help us be more mindful of where we're at, that mindfulness aspect, then our health can be affected in an adverse way, especially with everything we've gone through the last couple of years. I'm using an article from the Self website. There are a ton of websites and apps out there that will help you with your mental health, that will help you with your mindfulness, but this one's called Self, and it's an article on how to make and keep your New Year's resolutions. It's from Kelly Mickle and Amy Martirana Windell, a CPT. So these are 13 additional tips that these ladies would give to you about setting New Year's resolutions. The first is make smaller resolutions. That sounds pretty simple, but sometimes we make big, huge resolutions and then they're too overwhelming to meet. So make some smaller resolutions. Number 2, seriously get specific with your goals. We mentioned this tactic above, but it's worth emphasizing. Save money is a good goal, but how and how much? Without some definable parameters, your best intentions can get lost in the shuffle. The more detailed you can be, I'm going to save $30 a week by eating out one fewer meal, the easier it is to stay focused on what you have to succeed. Number 3, write down your goals. Even if it's just in your phone, write them down. Keep a journal. They suggest you keep a journal. Elizabeth Ward, PhD, suggests that you keep a journal in relation to your goals. So you have a notebook or something, or maybe it's an app on your phone or the notebook on your phone, where you write down how you're doing with your goal. You record your observations, you record what's difficult for you and what's easy for you. So number 4, enlist some help from technology. And they suggest a few resources: Mindshift, Strides, Streaks, Productive, and then journaling apps. So those are all goal-setting apps. Strides, Streaks, Productive. Those are our goal-setting apps. Mindshift, which teaches therapy skills for overcoming negative thought patterns. And then there's also a lot of journaling apps. So if you go to this article, it's at self.com, and you type in New Year's resolutions on that website, you'll find this article. You'll be able to click on these different links to try these out. There's also a list that they have on this website of 41 mental health apps that can make life easier. And you can just click right on that link under number 4, which is enlist some help from technology. So use the technology to help yourself with your goals. Number 5, make your resolutions public. This is what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be making some of my resolutions, the general resolution categories, public. And number 6 goes along with that: plan for follow-through. Your resolution should never just be another item on your to-do list. At first, your goal was new and exciting, so you were inspired to make time for it. 3 weeks in, the novelty may wear off. So if each morning you have to find a way to make your goal happen, you're more likely to decide based on whether you feel like doing it, which we rarely do. So I'll talk about that with one of my goals, which is a fitness goal. And if I didn't make a specific plan for my fitness goal, by the time I get to the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I don't feel like exercising. I'm not going to go for a run or a swim. I've worked hard all day. I'm tired. I just want to sit at home and eat snacks and watch a basketball game. We have to plan for the follow-through. Number 7, stack your habits. This is something that was new to me, so I'm going to read what it talks about here with stacking habits, but you can see this on the Self website also, self.com. Attaching your goal to another activity that you do every day, a tactic called habit stacking, can also make it easier to stick with a new endeavor. For instance, if you want to meditate more, Plan a nightly session for right after brushing your teeth. The term habit stacking was coined by the writer S.J. Scott in his book, Habit Stacking, 97 Small Life Changes That Take 5 Minutes or Less. But the premise that having a constant cue, whether that be preceding an activity or specific setting your association with that behavior, it will make it easier to train yourself to make a behavior a habit. Check in with yourself regularly. That's number 8. Reassuring your goal throughout the weeks and months it takes, that's essential. Make sure you make those check-in times. Maybe it's once a week where you have a little check-in, and that's where the journaling comes in, where you might write a little journal about how you're doing with your goals and what was a challenge this week for you and what are you going to do differently next week. Number 9, celebrate small successes. We talked about that. The example they give is if your goal is to run a half marathon, don't save the party for the finish line. After each long run, reward yourself with a good book, new music, or a fancy latte from your favorite coffee shop. So I'm going to tell you about one thing that I did with celebrating small successes. When I worked on my doctorate and specifically with my dissertation, I was in a small dorm room for a summer institute on Washington State University's campus, surrounded by research, in the midst of writing my dissertation, and I found it very difficult to keep my focus. And so what I did is I really like hot tamales, the candy hot tamales. So I had a box of hot tamales, and each time I finished one page in my dissertation, I rewarded myself with a hot tamale. And so celebrate small successes. Find your hot tamale, figure out what that looks like. Number 10, remember that it's okay to slip up, then get back on track. Number 11, don't rely on others to get you where you're going. Asking people for support is smart, but to make your resolution stick, now is the time to learn how to be your own cheerleader. In fact, relying too heavily on a pal or family member to get you to do something might actually decrease your motivation to work toward your goals. Your partner might be great at getting you out of bed for your morning job, but what happens when they're out of town? Without any motivation to hit the treadmill on your own, you will hit the snooze button and you will not get up and do that treadmill. So to remind yourself why this goal is important to you, write little notes and post them where you'll see them. Your desk, the mirror, and yes, that snooze button. Or you can put it on your phone. You can do, there's post-it note apps on your phone that will just pop up and give you reminders. Number 12, stick with what works. Once your behavior starts to feel routine, it's easy to assume you have this in the bag and can let down your guard, Dr. Norcross says. But that's when you become vulnerable to missteps. You may think that because you haven't smoked in more than 2 months, you can lift your ban on meeting up with friends who do, or that you can stop scheduling workouts because you'll just naturally make time for them now. But those techniques were crucial to your success up to this point, and taking them away can dissolve your resolve. As Dr. Norcross urges, whatever you're doing is working, so don't stop. Number 13, believe in yourself. People say that they want to make a resolution, but they don't believe that they can actually accomplish it. Dr. Klubeck says, if you know you're capable of making your desired change, then believe in it wholeheartedly. If not, rethink how you can phrase or reformat your resolution. When you reach your goal, it's time to celebrate, of course, but it's also time to plan how you'll stick with moving forward. Making a budget, eating for better heart health, or getting into a regular fitness routine are all positive lifestyle changes that are worth sticking with for more than just a year. So let me share my 2022 goals with you, my goal areas. I have 5 areas. The first area is a financial goal, and it's a savings goal to save a certain amount of money for retirement and for college tuition for kids. I have another goal area, do something spiritual each day to promote spiritual growth. And so one of the things that I'm doing is I'm using the method that they talked about, the habit stacking. And we have a certain time of day as a family where we're eating dinner, and before we do the dishes as a family, we sit down and we read our scriptures together. That gives me a stack to be able to improve myself spiritually. I can tie it into that activity, into the activity of eating dinner as a family and then doing the dishes. In between there, we're stacking that habit. My next goal area is treat everyone like it might be the last interaction you have with them. This is a kindness goal. I think this year, with the pandemic that we've been through, we should all have a kindness goal for our resolution. Something to help us remember that supporting each other and being kind to each other goes a long ways. So I have a goal in that area, and then I have some specific sub-goals in these areas also. My next area of goals is read and write each day. I've always wanted to do more writing, and I was a creative writer in the past, poetry and short stories, and I've thought about novels, so I'm going to start writing. But also, in order to be a better writer, you want to read more. So I've been reading quite a bit lately. And then my last goal area is to exercise for 30 minutes to an hour each day. And this goal has some subcategories because I have some goals that I'm working toward, which is also helpful to have some subcategories. So I would like to do a big event this summer, either a full Ironman or an ultra marathon. And so my training schedule will help me out with this goal area, but that also gives me a reason to meet my goal, because without the exercise I won't be prepared for those big races. So those are kind of rewards that I get by exercising each day. So those are my goals for 2022. What are your goals for 2022? Sharks should have goals because we're the Sharks, and go Sharks. Happy New Year. Thank you, Sophia, Raphael, Jesse, and other middle schoolers for your contribution to the music.
Sharkast.